Hello Heart of Tarot people, and hello my mystery school. Today I wanted to have a look at an astrological tarot spread, looking at how the world might emerge after the coronavirus. So politicians have been making a lot of promises. Already as the laws are being passed, we're seeing they're not living up to everything they said. Everyone's work life has changed, personal life. We're realising we're really social creatures more than we are money chasers. And the social relationships are proving to be more challenging and more needful at this time. Also good governance. We've been waiting for good leaders to emerge. So I'm going to start off doing the 12 houses of the astrology wheel. And we'll start off with 12 signifiers for each house. This is the house of the self, the house of resources, the house of communication, and the house of home. I'll spread these out a bit and just make sure we got it. Yeah. House of home, fourth house, fifth house, house of self-expression, creativity, children. Sixth house, the house of work, daily practice. Seventh house, relationships. Eighth house, birth, death, life, big stuff. Ninth house, our cultural expectations, foreign travel, how we expand. 10th house, career, how we are out in the world. 11th, our friendships, social networks, community. And 12th house, more our soul yearnings and institutions as well. I guess if I'm looking at politics, I'm looking at this house. If I'm looking at health, I'm looking here. And how it affects personally is this one. I'm also going to give 3 stories, 3 little clarifiers, 3 cards on each house to fill in the gaps. Give us a bit of a picture. And I'll use my Thoth deck to get 3 cards in the centre to get a kind of what is the purpose of this huge shift that Corona is giving us. Nothing has stopped the world this way so far. 3 cards to indicate the purpose of this journey we're all on. So 1, 2, 3. There we go. So we'll start at the first house, the house of the self. This is everyone dealing with the High Priestess. I'll just make sure you can see that. There we go. So this is called the call to go in, the call to seek answers only from within. This is spiritual healing and spiritual connection. This is learning to live beyond a physical material world and look at the riches within. So the High Priestess and number 2, she is a number of union and relationship, but it's her relationship with the inner world. So that's the main thing we're looking there at with the self, a bit of soul searching, a bit of reaching out to our spiritual family. It's also, she is the card of secrets because she holds it within. The answer is always held within And she is a passive, very feminine energy, receptive, passive energy. So potentially this is around discovering more of who we are, because the secrets are held within. 3 cards to give us an idea what that's about. And we've got 2 majors and a number 10. So what's this about? The Magician is about using the tools you have. He's the first card before we meet her. So the call has been made. We have to learn how to be more resourceful. And it's a clash with our spiritual values again. So the Hierophant is that access to a higher, broader, bigger belief system. And there's always a learning process with this guy. But he is our connection to step beyond the physical realm. He's a gateway card, a number 5, a card of change. And what do we need to change from? The idea of the material success, of accomplishment, of this is around family law and dynasties and generational wealth. And what that's created in this very conservative situation, it's cut us off from our spiritual family in a way. The one thing I see with this card is if you're included in the family circle, you're looked after in a physical, financial, material way. But if you're excluded, you don't get this security. My other issue with this card is this tapestry here on the edge. And to me, this tapestry is saying, if you're stuck in this, you can't explore, you can't find out more. And that's what this lady's saying here. This is the battle with the self. It's reaching for higher, to grow and develop and mature ourselves. We have the skills to do it. And it's got something about extending what we call family and what we call security. This is the house, the second house of resources. And our major card here is Temperance. So redistribution of wealth. I absolutely love this card for the new paradigm shifts. It's non-binary, it's fluid, it's androgynous, it's sexless, it's genderless, and yet it has this capacity to heal the water, the land, to see us through into the light over here, to present a pathway that has to unite duality. So our resources are about redistributing that, having more fairness, having more moderation. And divisions, there's no divisions in this card. Everything is held in balance. So it's, the resources have got something to do with the way we shared them. 3 cards to get, there we go. Look at the way we shared them. The Moon is our fears and our deepest, darkest secrets, the subconscious acting out. It's dark and murky and unknown. We have to face our fears with this. And our fears are the resources, about sharing resources, juggling resources, how we need local and yet overseas. There's the overseas. And we can't rely on this anymore. It's all rocky. We're having to do a little dance. The outcome is how do you make your own, how do you accept a gift? How do you receive? And sometimes this card is called Fool's Gold. And maybe that's what the resources are about. But clearly, this one's saying, what do we need to share? We need to get over our fears and start this juggle and start making sure everyone's got something in their hands. So this is what's emerging once Corona has come through. This is the way we'll be changing what will be really hard to step back from. The 3rd house is the house of messages, communication. It's schools, it's transport, it's the way we think. So here we are, the primary thing, how will we emerge after coronavirus? Knowing that there is one world, our small actions here have a huge impact everywhere else. This is a really good card for paradigm shift. It's making us more aware of the way communications and our connections affect others. I also would be using this as World Wide Web. If we look at what's going on behind, how do we emerge? Well, we've got to take the blindfold off and look at what's there. Right now, we're dealing with this as an impasse, and decisions need to be made. And we know the decisions are around this redistribution, of being more accepting, of being more tolerant, of breaking down divisions and letting things flow. And the hard thing will be this communication getting back into work, getting back into the daily routine. And with this guy, he's the guy, he's a gun for hire. He works, if you give him money, he'll do the job. So we're starting to look at the way we just got on our horse and trotted forward and did the job that was asked of us, like a mercenary. So how we emerge is a slow movement back to this, but our worldview has changed. I do expect with this that there's more consideration around the way we work online and the way we work communicating with each other. But I just think on an individual level, people are not wanting to go back in their car, back into, the daily drive, 2 hours, whatever it is you are on the road, getting to and from your workplace. We're going to need more flexibility about that. And it's been forced on us with this. This is the house, the fourth house of home, family, if you like, mother. What is close to us, what is near and dear to us. The place we return to, and look, the Tower. After Corona, the idea of home and immediate family is really gone through a change. This, on a big level, it might be what we call your home, your country, your homeland. And just the lid's been blown off it. It's been a real shock. And people isolated in their homes, they're really seeing what's there. If you're getting on with the people that you are sharing your space with, it's an amazing bonding, like really vulnerable, beautiful position. If you're not getting on with the people that you live with, or if you're in trauma or domestic violence, this home is now frightening. And all the places that you thought you were comfortable going to have no longer exist. Underneath, we've got home being, we thought home was something that you held on to, and you didn't really think about what was going on behind. But now we have to think of home and the rest of the world, and separating us from our loved ones, separating us from family. And that's energized us in some way. The Chariot, a major card in this, and then we don't know what we want with the Seven of Cups. So what's going on there? I think this has really shaken up people's perception of what they thought was safe and who they wanted in their home, because it's showing a real conflict about managing this. Now, some would call this the wish card, but I actually call this the coronavirus card, because it affects so many areas. It's unseen, it's hidden, it's bringing out some of our fears, it's just presenting an unknown. And so it's dealing with that unknown in the safety of your home. This will change us. As coronavirus lifts, we're still going to be on our guard. We're going to be more prepared. Maybe we're going to be more suspicious of other. I hope not. We'll see how we go along. This is the fifth house, the house of creative expression. It's a house ruled by Leo. It's the house where you kind of shine. It's also the house of children, and in some ways the house of father. So we've got the Hanged Man there. Our self-expression is undergoing a big change. I guess we'll see when we move up into these areas, if that's because we've had a value shift, or we're learning to live with limitation, or like over here with our High Priestess, we're learning to juggle within and the inner world with the outer world. we're really struggling. We're feeling our self-expression is being stifled. But this is the place of creativity. So something new is emerging. If only we can have that psychological turning point and bring it together, and then we have this illumination. It's a central card here. These ones also show a bit of a struggle, not terrible. We've got major cards in these other houses, but with this, there's a bit of a stifling and argument and a feeling of restriction and indolence around the self-expression. So after Corona is lifted, we're a little bit lost at sea. We will turn our back on certain relationships and certain things, and it's the wise thing to do. But there's confusion and sparring and competition about what we want to build for the future. And then this kind of phase of not knowing what we've got to work with, and being really daunted or hard to see the big picture here. So I'm a little worried about our self-expression. It looks like we're going to go creatively into a bit of a slump. And this also makes me wonder about sanctions and restrictions and laws being lifted. This makes me think there's a dragging of the feet around lifting personal freedoms. And this may turn a lot of people off. So it's kind of interesting to have that in this place. So if we come back here, it is a bit like the restrictions and the clampdown on freedoms will be held in and held back. Sixth house, the house of daily work. It's also health. It's also animals. The Emperor. So looking for security. Getting back to very basic stuff about the way you heal your body. Our routines have become much more conservative. And as far as work goes, we want resources shared. But here we're looking for structures that are going to continue to support our daily work. So I would expect once Corona is lifted, there is a push to maintain stability and security in daily work. Over here, we've got some people trying to return to the good old days, the way it was before. And that's this authoritarian rule, this what I thought we were growing out of, the micromanager, the narcissistic boss, these sorts of things. Some people will not be able to return to this tradition. It looks like after Corona that there really is this push to return things to normal, but things have changed. Our seventh house, the house of relationships. Transformation. The way we relate to each other has really gone through a huge kick. And we look across here. It's the isolation. It's the time to think and reflect. The time to want to nourish your soul. And you can't do it in the usual ways. A lot of relationships will be suffering after coronavirus is cleared. People won't be able to have the same business relationships or relationships with their family. It's also, I guess, potentially looking at that death toll. If we get a bit of detail, yeah, okay, that's a bit sad. So the promises that were made within relationships have been bound up and tied, and people have found really struggled with the restriction, feeling very trapped in relationships that didn't live up to a promise. And this is the sneaking around card. It's neither of these are the ones you want in your house of relationships. So it's like a lot of secrets are coming forward, personal secrets. And it's going to really wake people up once we get back to normal. I think if people are living within a a falsehood or a restriction of the mind, it's going to be hard for them to continue. And people don't want false promises. We want authentic relationships, and we're ready to let go anything that looks like this. This is the 8th house, the house of birth, death, mysticism. It's ruled by Scorpio. A beautiful card for Scorpio. This is isolation, death of the ego, death of materialism, learning to live frugally and simply, learning to find your own answers. If we look across at over here, the place of resources, we know the outcome will be around the sharing. So there's a spiritual movement going on, but it's very solitary, it's very individual, and it's very at odds with this one down here. Though this is good for health, I got to say, this is good for doing your exercise and eating well and taking care of your body. This one is about our mental health. And there's going to need a lot of support around mental health. The cards here in the 8th house. The Queen of Cups is that beautiful feminine energy. She holds her emotions in, and there's always more to be revealed. She's very loving, very protective, unconditional love. She's flowing, connecting, healing. There's an awful lot of healing going on. This card, the 9 of Cups, to me is someone who has achieved an awful lot, especially in the realm of relationships, networks, connections, and they're feeling pretty good about it. But to me, this person has got their back to what they've earned. So it's a bit taking things for granted. It also feels a bit like lording over others. And there's light and sun on this. In some ways, I feel this shows up the division of the haves and the have-nots. And although we're dealing with cups, it's a bit around emotional strength and a truth coming out. Perhaps this is like hoarders, and those who came from love and shared and maintained and flowed. Maybe there's going to be something after coronavirus is lifted that alerts us to stockpiles. People who stockpiled, where the money went. This house represents other people's money. Someone's made a profit out of this, not just one person, 9 people, or 9 organisations, 9 structures. Someone's made a profit out of this, and it's not come from love. I'm hoping that the sun means that this will be revealed, because this one is more where our deep connection with life, birth, death and everything, it's more shifted back into this place of flow. So yeah, okay, my reading now is someone's made a profit out of this, and I believe that will be revealed. It may be investigated. Stockpiling, dodgy deals. The 9th house is the house of travel, of expansion, of healing. It's the house ruled by Sagittarius and Jupiter. So it's a very lucky house, but it's where we want to aspire to. It's also a house that looks at cultural beliefs and things that are just beyond us, the structures that aren't physical, that live beyond us. So foreign countries, foreign places, literature, publications. Do you get what I mean about this house? It educates us beyond what we knew down here. And what have we got? We've got 2 majors and an ace. So, big. Once Corona lifts, what we see, because this is potentially also social media and the way it, the stars, there's so many stars in the sky and the way the stars leap out and connect each other. So I'm also going to say this is around social media. But something really dark and dirty, a really hard truth has come up. In some ways, this may be around travel and the way borders were shut, will borders open. There is real fear and danger around that, but there's some bondage that goes on that's tied. So, you know, often that bondage is money or, you know, debt. Promises made to get things moving again. But there's a real juggle about staying strong. The need for strength, the need for courage, the need to not come at this hard. And this card is very hard, and so is this, the Sword of Truth. I guess if this card of higher aspirations is saying we need to still do this dance even after Corona is lifted. We may not be free. We may be tied to this in some way. And we are going to have to accept the Sword of Truth in this if we are going to have this healing. The 10th house is the house of career and job and how you are out in the world. Look at that, the Lovers. A choice is being made. So this, for a lot of people, is people losing their jobs, rethinking their careers, potentially wanting to commit to something that they love rather than something they spend all their time in the car wondering, you know, where is the freedom in this? It will also be, once Corona lifts, all the new relationships, all the new pacts, all the new trade relationships that will need to happen about getting things back and moving. It's a lucky card to have up there. It says, you know, as an entity outside of ourselves, after Corona's lifted, we are all going to have to commit and make a choice. Here's our choice. So we've got 2 towers in these positions. The 4th house and the 10th house, the house of Cancer and the house of Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign where these huge earth changes began. Pluto in Capricorn, Saturn meeting up with it in Capricorn, Jupiter and Pluto, Mars and Pluto, all those planets lining up in Capricorn are what have created astrologically this huge paradigm shift. And on this axis of Capricorn and Cancer, we've got the breakdown. It's affected how we see ourselves in the world, and it's affected us right down into the roots of who we thought we were. Once Corona is lifted, there is this celebration of this feeling of getting back into the relationships, back into the choices and making deals and getting on with it. And there's also this, we've changed. And this is our trade and commerce card, the 3 of Wands. So this card is, again, looking, how do we open up those shores? How do we open up that trade? Down here in our resources, it's a real juggle getting this thing back on. In a way, when I look at this, I feel the 10th house after Corona is lifted just wants to get back down to business. But seriously, something's really fundamentally changed here. This is the 11th house, and it's the house of friendships and community and social networks. It's also the house of wishes. We've got our devil here and we've got our devil here. This is exposing some really deep mistrust around the networks. As, you know, especially right now, this house represents technology and social media, the internet. It's the house ruled by Aquarius. And most of these planets that have been in Capricorn, the big planets, the outer planets, the ones that affect generations and society and thinking, they are all starting to move into Aquarius. So we've got a real issue here around the way we use Aquarian technology and Aquarian thinking. Something is chaining us to the devil. Big cards here, so the World, Wheel of Fortune, and the 6 of Swords. this one so far, this is the most dramatic shake-up. I guess if I look back at our opposite, the fifth house, this is the one where our self-expression is being stifled. And potentially where restrictions and laws and sanctions that were put on us socially remain even after coronavirus has lifted. And I wonder if that's what's going on up here. This huge change that's happened to the world, and this represents World Wide Web, the internet. There's something quite chaotic. You can say this is a card a turn for the better. And this one says there is a short-term win in this. There is this sense of moving on to safer and better waters. But there's something very karmic, and the timing of this has really had to bring us to face this truth. I guess socially that's, we were isolated from friends and family. And over here in relationships, a lot of truth, uncomfortable truth has come out. But it does make me wonder if there's more we need to look at around the way electronic communications are being handled, are being managed, the changes that came down to social rules. The devil is an inversion. So the social rules were completely inverted. But I'm not sure that everything feels really free and light once this comes back. It's almost like taking advantage of this chaos. And someone's sneaking away in the middle of the night. If we look at a larger responsibility, this house might represent also migrants and immigrants, the way borders are held. And we might be something sinister, something dark and corrupt might be going on while our backs are being turned there. This one is the one I'm going to be looking out for. The 12th house is our house of collective connections, of the soul, of institutions, of secrets. It's where the veil is at its thinnest. This is the house of mystery and secrets. It's ruled by Pisces, and so it has that very compassionate feel. The 12th house is the furthest away from the first house. So it's the furthest away from your immediately personality self. This is what we need to do as a collective. So we are looking for charity from institutions. We're looking, so this is health and hospitals, it's the church, it's places of asylum, it's welfare and charity that reaches out. And we are looking for better governance. There we go. Wow, the wake up. On a soul level, on a collective level, this is the wake up. It's the call to action. We're being, here we were, this is us being locked down, in lockdown. Once Corona's lifted, we start to receive more news, more messages, more hope. This might be entrepreneurs getting things happening, small business getting back up its ground, back on its feet. But collectively, there's a judgment call going on on the huge scale. I guess we're looking at our institutions to really heed this warning. This card also makes me think of climate justice. And I really feel these issues are linked, that Corona and the bushfires in Australia and climate change and climate justice, I feel they're all linked through the astrology that's been going on in Capricorn as it moves into Aquarius. The Judgment card is an inevitable ending. There's something that is unavoidable to face, and it's over here in our 12th house. It still seems a secret to us. I know we had our queen over here holding the secrets in, There's more that's going to come out. I feel with the Hierophant being the signifier of the 12th house, we have the keys of learning. We have the keys to do this. But our next move once Corona lifts is we've fundamentally changed. If we try to go back to the old ways, there's an inevitable ending. So if we look at the bigger purpose behind all of this, the Hanged Man, the Ace of Cups, and the Nine of Cups, happiness. These cups here definitely make me think about that flow and the way the virus spread so quickly from one to many. If we're looking at a broader view here, we're emerging. We've been very stuck. The Hangman is held in suspension, needing to look at things from a different perspective, realizing that we've been sacrificing ourselves in some way. And if we could break free of that just by changing our perspective, we can open up. And where we need to open up, the cup of love, Ace of Cups, is new emotion, new emotional connections, good news around healing and, allowing the feminine to flow. And from that, it reaches so many. One small action touches so many. And that's the story of the virus too. One small action. We have to be so socially aware, so self-responsible. One small action makes a big difference. In the Thoth deck, the Nine of Cups is also, it's called happiness, but it's also Jupiter in Pisces. And Jupiter will be moving into Pisces in 2021. So I'm expecting this, the way that Cups spills out and becomes the Nine of Cups is something we'll see over the course of that year while Jupiter is in Pisces. Jupiter in Pisces is also very spiritual. It looks for the expansion of spiritual values, the expansion of spiritual connection. And that can be hardcore religion. Though this doesn't feel like hardcore religion. It feels like the way everything's interconnected. In a very simple way. I guess that's the purpose of Corona. We are all connected. And our self-responsibility, our personal actions, really do have a huge impact with the rest of the world, and the way we've shaken up what we thought was home and near and dear to us has been turned on its head. I hope it's given you a broader view so we're not spiralling into the tiny details of this isolation, and seeing that this too will pass, although we are changed forever, and we've been given the support to do that, to undergo that paradigm shift. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Merryl Key, and you can see me at My Mystery School on YouTube, Instagram, or The Heart of Tarot on Facebook. You can also book in with me. I'm working online at the moment, www.merrylkey.com.